along with all our guests, which we're very pleased to have with us for this meeting. I'd also like to introduce our officers, Jane Boytolt and Louise Livingstone, and also Eddie Scott, who's our clerk to this meeting. Minutes of the last meeting. Are you agreed with those the minutes of that meeting? Thank you. Item 4, declarations of interest. I personally have to declare an interest in the Camberley Cricket Club. Our grandson plays for the cricket club, and my son-in-law is an umpire there, so we've got a big interest in the cricket club. Are there any other declarations of interest? Josephine?
Thank you. I'm not sure if I should declare an interest or not. I am the council appointee of Voluntary Support North Surrey, but for the last 6 months. But as of yet, I've had nothing from them at all. So I've not attended anything, had any emails or information. So I guess that isn't really a declaration. But I thought I'd say it just in case. Thank you.
Thanks, Josephine. And Morgan? I'm
not sure if it is interest, but I met with Camberley Judo Club's representatives today this afternoon with Jane Boytolt. So not really an interest, but we did discuss how various options that they could apply for grants and such. But obviously, I'd come to the meeting fully open, but it's not really an interest. I just wanted to make everyone aware.
Item on, which is an update for Accent Peerless, which you should have all received the slides for. We're not actually, it's for noting only. We're not actually going to be discussing that tonight. Holly Shepherd will be attending at our March meeting in 2022, and she will be giving us an in-person update in order to give us a in-depth presentation then. So, as I say, you should have all received the... is there anybody that didn't receive the slides or seen the slides?
Oh, sorry.
I would like to say, though, we always seem to get them sort of like at the last minute. Can we not have them like a little bit before? Because they always seem to be so late.
Yeah. Eddie, do you send... No, not really.
Sorry, Councillor McGrath. To be perfectly honest, I didn't really understand the comments.
They always seem to come sort of like later in the day. Like everyone always seems to have their rostering. Everybody else always seems to get their things in on time for us to have a look through, and they always seem to be sort of like always late at the last minute. So you never get a proper chance to sort of like look through them.
Okay, yes, I understand that now. As in you're talking about the agenda papers.
Yeah.
Okay, noted, and we'll.
No,
that's absolutely fine.
Don't be sorry.
It's noted, and when we look to publish the papers in March, we'll try and get them out early.
Yes, thank you. So we'll turn now to voluntary. That's item 5. Voluntary support North Surrey. I can hand it over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you very much for this opportunity to come and talk to you this evening and explain a little bit about the S&S. In the spirit of full disclosure, I should say that I only came onto the board in April, so I'm still on a massive learning curve as well. And I learned very quickly that do what Celeste tells me, and that seems to work very well as a starting point. But just a tiny bit of background about me. I came back to the UK in December last year after 30 years of living and working abroad, most recently as a director with the UN programme on HIV/AIDS. So I've spent a number of years in public health. So that's the background. I came back to Chertsey, took my parents for their first COVID jab, and discovered the world of volunteering. And through that, came through to VSNS and was asked if I wanted to take this on and replace Arthur. I refuse to believe it's possible to replace Arthur, but I'm going to give it my best shot. So, again, thank you very much for letting us come and talk to you this evening. We've given you a number of slides, and I appreciate and apologise for the number, but we felt that this would probably be a good opportunity to give you a bit of a handout, a bit of a pack of information about what we do and what we're about. So I'm certainly going to talk through the first couple of slides very quickly, and then hand over to Celeste, who I'm sure will give you the interesting information about what we've actually been up to and how we've been spending your money. We are an independent organisation that I feel really sits between organisations like borough councils like yourselves and the residents of the boroughs. We have four main roles: our statutory role, which is set out in the tripartite agreement, and the SLA, which is in your pack. We have a capacity building role, which is really the meat and drink of what we do. And I think of this as our client-facing role. So this is working with voluntary organisations, third sector organisations, helping them with unmet needs, communications, how better to engage and have a voice with people like yourselves, and really to understand what we can do for them that others can't. So how we can plug some of those gaps. Organisationally, we strive to be the best organisation we can, and we want to be a beacon for how voluntary organisations should be run. As you'll appreciate, in the last year or so, we've had a very large service provision role where we've really stepped up organising volunteers for the emergency COVID response. And for us, this is an interesting discussion that we're having within the board at the moment about how far we want to move as an organisation into service provision vis-à-vis the more statutory elements of what we do. So this is an ongoing discussion, and I, for one, would certainly appreciate any thoughts and comments you have around that. We have four major priorities that we're working around at the moment, which are set out in our business plan that we've certainly shared with Jane, and I'd be very happy to share with others who are interested. Four major priorities. The first is mental health, health with an emphasis on mental health. I think we all know how much COVID has hit the population. We have a big project around Time to Talk, which is a key engagement we have with Surrey Heath, and I know Celette's going to speak about that. Diversity and inclusion is also very key, not just for our clients who expect to see themselves reflected back in the things that we do, but also in our governance structure. We have space on our board at the moment for trustees, and we are looking at how we can bring in, perhaps in a slightly more flexible structure, younger trustees who might be interested to come in for a year or two, perhaps through the programme we have with Royal Holloway, to have a younger voice on the board. So for us, this is a tremendously important issue that, as I say, from a board perspective, we're working on at the moment, and again, focusing on youth engagement. You'll appreciate that traditionally volunteering tends to be something that seems to be the purview of the semi or retired, and I think COVID has shown us that demographic can come down. So it's really how we can leverage that. Future-proofing after COVID is proving to be challenging at best. As you'll appreciate, we had a huge number of people wanting to volunteer. The great British spirit around the emergency response, but we also had a lot of people coming into the sector for the first time. A lot of people were on furlough, had not thought about volunteering before. I certainly hadn't. It was something very new to me. So we're seeing a younger group come in. Their motivations for volunteering are different, and it's important that we understand what is motivating them. And one of the things that we have done is go to Lakeside and conduct a survey with the volunteers at Lakeside to understand from them what the areas that are future interest. So as we move them on from volunteering for COVID, where would they like to do some volunteering in future? And it's important that we can try and match them up with some appropriate programs and activities. Safeguarding is tremendously important at the moment. We're dealing with some very vulnerable individuals, And we have to make sure that not only that we understand how to safeguard our own people, but also that the organisations we support can offer that same safeguarding for the people they support, and stepping up engagement where we can with the private sector. Our last priority is around communication. We've struggled, if I'm honest, we've struggled as VSNS to be visible in terms of the work we've done around some of the vaccination centres. People understand that there are volunteers out there, that they're doing great things, but they're not necessarily linking that back to VSNS. So for us, that again is something about making ourselves visible, and you know, again, if you have any suggestions, we'd be very interested to hear them. In terms with particular emphasis on Surrey Heath, we're also very interested in the thinking around having the hub in Camberley, and we would very much appreciate being one of the groups that, through the Place project, that would give us some visibility on the High Street. I just wanted to give you a little bit of information around some of the numbers, because I think this is also something that will be of interest. So if we look at, this slide is really just to point out that in terms of the core and the project work that we do, currently 70% of what we do is around core work, 30% on project funding. And we also, in addition to receiving money from the 3 boroughs and the county council, we receive funding from the CCG for project-based activities. And this, in the last year or so, has really been COVID and the wellbeing project around obesity. And in terms of Surrey Heath, this just breaks down where the money comes from and where we're spending the money. So from the borough, you'll see that we're receiving £40,000. CCG, 89, but 49 of that is actually a staff position for youth engagement within VSNS. And then we also receive some money from County Council. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Solette, who will tell you what we've been doing for the last year.
Can you hear me okay?
Press the button. That's it.
Okay, is that better? Thanks. Yes, following on, I'm going to speak a little bit more about the activities that we've been doing now that Helen's set it in context. Thank you very much. Capacity building is very much our core, our business as usual, helping other charities to be the best they can be in whatever guise that comes. Some of the things that we do that you'll be familiar with is helping people to write applications, helping them with the digital environment, particularly around digital fundraising, and sharing our really successful workshops on that and social media. The fundraising agenda, volunteering, helping people with charity law, increasingly virtual volunteering is something that we've been looking at, anything to do with their governance and board matters, and more recently we've got a Surrey-wide project that we're leading on, which is around trying to get more youth engaged in volunteering. Post-pandemic, the work around about a third of our organisations are not in crisis, but really, really desperate and keen to have volunteers. And that's the crux of our work at the moment, is looking constantly at how to reinvent the ask so that it doesn't just look monotonous and repetitive, and how to get that ask out to further audiences for volunteers. The COVID response, Helen's already touched on. Here's a few more figures just to say that we think that we've saved the NHS £260,000 in volunteers in Lakeside. I'm not saying we alone have done that, but we've certainly placed the volunteers there that have done nearly more than 2,000 shifts now. And with the help of all the clever vaccinators, they've vaccinated 130,000 people or thereabouts. In addition to Lakeside and supporting the recruitment and the scheduling of the volunteers, we have been involved in delivering PPE weekly and ordering PPE for the groups, and we're still doing that. And we've been doing that for the last 2 years now. And also we've been working on a project with Health to help volunteers deliver the meters for measuring oxygen in the blood and getting those out where needed. Been involved in chairing the COVID champion work that the borough has been working very carefully on. Particularly around that, we were involved in writing the initial terms of reference for the COVID champions and asking COVID champions to join the initiative. We've got a mental health forum that we've been running for years. I think it's probably more than 6 years. I didn't have it at my fingertips when I was writing this, but we run this forum quarterly. And whilst it says that typically 20 organisations would participate in each forum, that's out of a base of about 35 organisations. It is something that the group really enjoys, because we check quite regularly whether it's something that needs to carry on happening. But it is the only forum that these people get together and share what they're doing, and helps for them to understand what each other is doing around mental health. We carry on supporting social prescribing. We were once in the business of doing social prescribing, but now our emphasis is very much around supporting the groups, so that when social prescribers need to point them at a voluntary group, the voluntary groups are able to meet the demand, and helping these groups that have more demand than usual to find funds so that they can carry on delivering on behalf of the social prescribers any sort of demands. We still meet regularly with the social prescribers, and that's once a month, to try and understand from them where they think the need is. Time to Talk is a project that's part funded by the borough and part funded by the CCG. We currently have 39 live and active volunteers. The number looks quite low. We've had a massive turnover with the pandemic. We've recently lost 15 volunteers. People that are older and befriending, that don't feel able to come back face to face. So we've had a very successful recruitment drive, which resulted in a lot of interest, but actually only 3 placements. So we need to do more of that. It's becoming important to do that. We haven't got a waiting list of people that are isolated, which again is slightly concerning. At one time, the social prescribers were referring a vast amount of people to us, but because of the pandemic, possibly, it's quieter. They're not doing face-to-face work, and we're not receiving as many referrals as we were. But I think that's probably masking the reality of the fact that there's a lot of people in Surrey Heath that are perhaps feeling isolated, and were we to ask, they would want a befriender. So it's sort of chicken and egg, really. We don't want to ask too many people if they want help before we can get some more volunteers. And it's measuring how quickly we can get the volunteers in and trained and checked before we increase the ask with the residents. And in line with our service level agreement, we have been working very well with Surrey Heath Age Concern. They've just had a change of team, and we've met with them in the last week and are very confident that we can carry on working with them in a satisfactory way. The Surrey Heath Show is something that we've been involved in for a number of years. One of our staff members sits on the committee. She's a bank signatory, and she's been involved in trying to help the group find more volunteers. They've only got 5 on the committee. There are 3 borough representatives as well, I believe, on the committee. But possibly more committee members would be desirable. We've been successful in working with quite a few businesses in the Surrey Heath area, engaging them in both volunteering and donations. Here's a list of a few of them. Heister Yale have been active, Enterprise Aldershot always. S.E. Johnson made some donations during the pandemic that we've used to help the digital agenda, and Alcon. I'm sure you're going to have some questions. I'm preempting the question about, what can we do in the future? How better can we work together? I think support in our area for the befriending project would still be much appreciated, and anything that you can do to help us find volunteers for all of our charities. It's got to be a priority at the moment for us, for sure. In terms of the broader private sector engagement. We know that people within the borough are working also with businesses, and how can we work collectively more intelligently so that to avoid irritating any businesses by both of us going to them, and make sure that we do joined up working. I think that there's an initiative in the borough with CMPP, but I don't know who they're talking to, for example, and then they may not be talking to anybody. There's the hub in Camberley that are doing very well with helping people to find employment, and they're using the Voluntary Support North Surrey database of volunteering opportunities to help these young people engage in volunteering, and we welcome closer cooperation with them around how we can support them with volunteering opportunities that are suitable for the people that they're engaging with. And anything on premises, and I know that Jane and others have been working on an initiative with Councillor McLafferty to look at whether there might be a central hub for the voluntary agencies in Surrey Heath. That's all that we've got covered in our little presentation. Very happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, Celeste, and also yourself, Helen. Always very interesting to hear all the good work that you're doing here for us and the residents. I have a mention from Sean Garrett, one of our councillors here. He was hoping to be able to speak tonight, and he says, many thanks for all the work and getting volunteers on board for Lakeside Vaccination Centre, which you've actually mentioned, and for all the other work that they do in the borough. For all my vaccinations, have been going to Lakeside, and I have to say, it was absolutely brilliant, all the work.
We've just received an award from the Deputy Lord Lieutenant for the work that we've been doing in vaccination centres.
Right.
And Lakeside should be particularly proud. I think that they were ahead of the other agencies because of the wonderful vaccination programme they had around flu. When it came to starting on the boosters and the vaccinations, they already had the infrastructure there, and we were able to support them with technology that meant that we were very, very quick in mobilising volunteers and scheduling them using apps, which were embraced by the volunteers.
Yes.
And the programme there has 17 lead volunteers that come together and then manage in turn the other volunteers. And these leads and this leadership role that people have taken on as volunteers is crucial, and it's emulated in other areas, but I think it's most successful in Surrey Heath.
Yes, it has been really, really good. And you mentioned, needing more volunteers. I'm a volunteer at the church doing different things and tied up with the Alzheimer's Cafe as well, but for the last over 18 months I've not been able to do anything with them, but as soon as we can get over this I will be back in there, and maybe let's hope that other volunteers will be exactly the same. So we do have members on Zoom here tonight and in here and listening, but I will put any questions now from the Morgan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for the presentation. It was very informative, and welcome, Helen, to your position as well. I was really pleased to see the emphasis on diversity and inclusion, as you mentioned, and I think it's really important in reaching communities that sometimes we struggle to reach. And I'm just wondering if there's been any movement, or if there is part of the strategy that you're taking forward of reaching out to minority groups or minority communities, which are often are full of people who are looking to support and volunteer, but often find themselves self-selecting within their own community. I'm just wondering if that's something, and the first one that comes to my head is the Camberley Sikh Association, which has a really big membership, but I'm wondering if that's a resource that we haven't looked at engaging with. I was wondering if that's kind of on your mind as well in terms of the strategy.
I think, yes, thank you. And it's, I'll be brutally frank, it's you know, I've come onto a board that's very white and of a certain age demographic. So I think certainly that, this is why I'm very keen from the governance down, that we have a sea change in the way we, and coming with my background coming from the UN, if there's one thing I understand, it's diversity. So we're very keen to open ideas up. You know, we don't want trustees coming in now thinking I'm going to be here for the next 15, 20 years. We want you know, a rolling programme of trustees. As I've said, you know, the plan is to reach out to Holloway and to see if we can do something a bit more flexibly. You know, young people are really motivated at the moment to have things on their CV that say they've gone that little bit further. So I think that's a really good entry point. In terms of the groups, yes, I mean, we're doing our best to reach out to groups. We went through a recent recruitment process for somebody, a staff member. We had an excellent candidate come forward who'd come from the mosque in Woking. Offered him the position for various reasons, he didn't take it. So I think it's a challenge. It's not just a challenge for us. I think it's for the sector generally. It's a real challenge. And we are completely open. That's probably the best thing I can tell you at the moment. That if you have suggestions, we will be very willing to take them on and engage. And it comes back to the point I was saying about we can only be useful if our clients see themselves in the work we're trying to do. And it's not our job to do the service provision. It's our job to link up the right organisations with the right residents. So, yeah. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to add something, if I may. We did have a workshop just recently about diversity, and we teamed up with the Young Trustee Movement, who had some excellent young people with ideas on how to include more diverse people in not just trustee boards, but volunteering generally. And a little bit of work that I've been doing with my colleagues in Surrey, and when we look at volunteers, and volunteers that have been referred to a voluntary organisation, the take-up of the more ethnically diverse people versus, or for want of anything else, white, is less. So they might come through the door and they might be referred, but something happens between them reaching the organisation and accepting the voluntary role, which we're trying to unpick. So it's a piece of work. I know Jane is going to be doing some interfaith work with Holy Cross in the new year, and I'm hoping that maybe we can work alongside that as well, if that's successful, to try and step into their communities and see what we can do with them to help them come forward and volunteer.
Thank you. I think I think you should use councillors much more to push out what you do, and so that we can put it out to various residents and what have you, because a lot of people have a lot of contacts on Facebook, and to ask people for help. And I also think using the young, I don't know if it would be a role for them, but something like the Duke of Edinburgh award scheme. I mean, both our children did it, and our daughter went up to achieve gold, and she did a lot of volunteering. I think starting at that level, once you get a child interested, then it also means the whole family, the parents, and everyone gets involved. And you think, I didn't know about that, and and they are interested. And I think that might be, if you could find a role for the children DFE, because that, and I don't think it's something they ever forget. And also, it looks pretty good on the CV as well, to be honest. Thank you.
Just to comment on that point, yeah, and I went through the DV scheme, so I completely agree with you. I think it's a fabulous thing. We are engaged. The issue that we've had in the last year or two is that because of COVID, everything's ground to a bit of a halt on this, but I think we're starting to see the scheme starting up again in schools, so yes, yeah.
We have a leaflet for people, volunteers, for young people that want to get involved with Duke of Edinburgh with ideas of opportunities for them, and we're working with groups to try and keep that opportunity list wide, because initially, a couple of years ago, 3 years ago maybe, for example, we struggled to find placements for Duke of Edinburgh volunteers, and now we have a much more large and varied list of opportunities for them. So perhaps it's something we need to make more widely known, that we can help people that want to volunteer for the Duke of Edinburgh if they come to us. And I really would like to take on board your idea of using councillors to share our messages via their networks, as as we're exploring absolutely everything we can to make calls for volunteers for the groups that are trying to replace all the volunteers.
Might I just come back on that, Chairman? I mean, it would also help with your diversity because the children who could be volunteering, you know, it depends what ethnicity, if I can get it out right, you know, sort of what backgrounds they have. That would help to, you know, sort of to bring people together and more opportunities for everyone, really. Thank you.
Can I thank you on behalf of the, sorry? No, I can't see anybody. Sorry, trying to use all the technology at once. And we've got a new system as well. But can I thank you both for coming tonight and all the work that you do here in the community. And I think we'll certainly, amongst us, be looking out to see if we can get more volunteers for you. Yeah, thank you very much. Lovely to see you both. Thank you. Members, I now turn to item 6, Camberley Judo Club.
It's still on. Yeah? Okay, thanks everyone. Thank you for having us over today. We are from Camberley Judo Club. Thanks. I am Luke Preston, head coach of the Judo Club. It's my wife, Carly. Although looking at her achievements, I'm thinking that perhaps she should be the head coach after I've looked at this today, but yeah. I've been a member of the Judo Club for 24 years, so I moved down to Camberley in 1997 for my own judo career. Started coaching at the club in 2005, and I've been the head coach since 2009. So my main role is with the seniors and with the elite players, but I do oversee all of the coaching aspects of the club. Carly is our club secretary and the kids coach, and she's a big part of the club in all the organisations. Probably not enough slides to put down all the things that she does, but obviously she's been a big elite player herself, and she's giving back to the community with the kids coaching, especially with the younger children. So between us, we do a fair share of the club, but we do have other coaches helping us. We are a registered charity, and we, of course, have got trustees that help us as well. But probably Carly and I are the people that are there every day. We have made a short video, well, Carly's made a short video to look at. I will warn you, I watched it and it did seem to have a lot of men with their top off, but we'll probably gloss over that, but we'll try and get that to work. Yeah, so you have to just press play there. Yeah, so it should come on there. We're missing the
bronze
sound.
medalist, Karina Bryant. CJC Warriors, Ash McKenzie and Nathan Burns. Training in the gym. Kids camp in the summer. The lads before training. Training in our backyard during COVID for Zoom lessons. Kids competition. Mini judo tots, 3 and 4-year-olds. Six Dan and Olympic coach Luke Preston. Danny Williams, Olympian and children's coach, CJC, Judo Elite Schools bus. Mixed teams competition. Our gym. the dojo, Ash Mackenzie, 2021 Olympian. Free events and demonstrations in the mall in Camberley. The mats down for the schools project. Schools project at Lakeside. CJC gym. Training sessions. Elite team abroad. More children's tournaments. Demonstrations at Fates. Being involved in Surrey Youth Games, training. The Rotary. And now CJC Mini Warriors of the Week. The elite team in Berlin. Kids competition. Ipon of the day. Warm-up exercise. The latest children's competition.
Okay, so that video just gives you an example of the children that we reach within the judo club, from the elite level through to 3 and 4 year olds that we engage with. We have an on-site gym, a mini bus, and all those sorts of things that help the club. Within the children's judo, obviously with COVID, that went right down, the memberships went right down, participation went right down. But as of the moment, we've doubled our participation levels across the board with the judo club and the children. The ranges are from 3 years old to 18, and we're providing 11 classes per week for those students. And they're getting quite full, so we're endeavouring, hopefully, in January to increase the classes that we do offer so we can take on more children. The schools project was just basically started up before COVID kind of set hold on us, but we were in these primary schools up until just before COVID. There are some schools that we were teaching in, but haven't chosen basically to come back yet because they're not comfortable, I guess, with having classes from outside of coaches coming into the schools and that sort of stuff because of COVID safety. But at the minute, we've got approximately 100 students, and not all of the schools the students can afford to pay, the parents to pay for them to do judo. So we're working with Fernhill Primary in terms of just paying for the coach so that they can go in and they can have a term's worth of lessons that doesn't charge the children the school can afford to cover. So we're kind of quite flexible in terms of helping the schools, but also students that can't afford judo, we often say to the schools, let us know, we'll train them for free so that they can do judo, give them a free judo suit and those sorts of things. So it is a money-making avenue for the club, but it's more about participation and letting everybody have the opportunity to try judo and hopefully enjoy it and then feed into the judo club. So that's basically our schools project.
So Carly's video touched on it with we're a bit different to a lot of normal judo clubs, I suppose, in that we've always had a really elite aspect. These days, most Olympians or Commonwealth Games or national competitors would train at institutes or universities or centres of excellence. It's probably the last sort of private club charity that still has that aspect to it, which we're really proud of. So since the Barcelona Olympics, we've always managed to have representatives in Team GB at every Olympic Games. I'm not going to read them all out, but you can see I've written down the highlight results. Our pinnacle result at the moment was the Olympic Games bronze medal for Karina Bryant at the London Olympics, which I was lucky enough to be with her there for that as a Team GB coach, and also the 3 Commonwealth Games gold medals. The last time judo was in the Commonwealth Games was 2014. So that was a real highlight for the club to get 3 gold medals from Ashley Mackenzie, Danny Williams and Owen Livesey, and we're hoping to do that again next year with the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham. So we're equally proud of the grassroots element of the club and the kids section and the schools project, but we do want to endeavour to continue with the elite end and always try and get Olympians for Team GB. Ashley Mackenzie, again, was in the whole country, was the only male judo player that qualified for the Olympic Games this time, and he was from our club, so we're very proud of that aspect. Do you want to talk about funding, Carly?
Okay, so the club's been really fortunate, and Heath Borough Council, we've had a community grant to build our gym that's on site, which you would have seen in the photos. It was obviously a price-matched community grant, which is fantastic, and we had help from the members' grants. So Bill Chapman, David Iverson, Claire Dennis Fuller all helped donating their members' money to help us build the gym, which Morgan and Jane saw today. So it's a massive asset for the judo club in terms of strength and conditioning, making sure that the full-time athletes have something on site so they can train at. We also got a community grant towards the minibus, which is schools project, which gets on the mats into the schools, but also takes the athletes to competitions. So prior to COVID, it was driving to Germany, France, everywhere, Belgium.
Even Scotland.
Scotland, up north, you name it. It's travelled everywhere with the athletes on board. So, that asset is amazing for the club, and we really appreciate it. We got a Sport England grant, obviously through COVID, and the emergency COVID payments also, and the Rotary always, where they're Camberley Rotary, where they're chosen charities, so they always make a donation once a year, and we use that towards local kids on the Old Dean, so they can participate in the sport. The outreach, so this year we've always been interested in. We do summer camps, and we always noticed that there was loads of kids running around the Old Dean, not really doing anything, just left to their own devices. And with the Rotary, we were discussing that prior to COVID about what can we do to help these kids to keep them busy during the summer holidays. And then Active Surrey reached out about these summer food camps, which is the first time we've participated in this year, and they were really successful. The children really loved it, really good food for them. They learnt how to cook. We took them to an allotment, took them to the fish shop on the Frimley Road, and the butchers got them to choose something that they probably would never do because their parents could afford or that sort of thing. And they came back and cooked it on the barbecue and made their food, and we made homemade pizzas and all those sorts of things. So it was a really good thing to do, and something we'd always endeavoured to help these children, so it was a great opportunity. We've also involved in the community sports referral pathway for young offenders. We haven't had anyone yet, but we hopefully will be helping those people. We did an Action for Carers judo lessons last week at Frimley Youth Centre. We've also been collecting the Kit the Nation for the BBC, so we've got lots of kit that they're about to collect to help for children with sporting equipment, not just judo, but everything. And we also help loads of children on the Old Dean estate in terms of letting them train for free, camps in the summer, camps in half terms, competitions. We just had one on the weekend, and there was a lot of families that obviously couldn't afford the £12.50 for the entry, and we helped them as well. So we're always trying to be helpful to those children on the LD and their families as well, because it's just not the kids that you end up helping, it's the mums, and also what we found through...
And the dads.
It's mostly mums, unfortunately, but with mental health issues and things like that, a lot of stuff arose during the pandemic where we had to kind of step out of what we normally do in terms of support with those guys. And I went on a mental health first aid course and kind of learnt how to point in the direction with where they need to go in terms of getting help and that sort of thing. So, yeah, that's what we've been doing. Okay. The club overview. So in 2019, at the end of it, we signed up with a new company that collects all our fees for training. And basically, it gives the charity the information that the trustees want, KPIs, gives us new leads, the website that works really well, people can sign up really easily, gives you all the information. Obviously, we're affiliated with the British Judo, so it clicks through to a link so they're insured to be on the mat. It's really, really simple, and it gives us all the information that we need every month in terms of increasing participation and obviously collecting fees. Obviously, everything went down, but it's starting to go back up again, so everything's kind of pointed in the right direction and how we collect our training fees at the club.
Okay, so just the last slide now for the aims for the future, really, in to improve our current facilities. And we've endeavoured for a long time to find funding for a new facility. We haven't ever managed to do that. Just the designs that were drawn quite a long time ago actually are up there. That would be the sort of thing that we would love to get one day, but until that day we will work with the facilities that we've got to keep doing our best, really. So that would be our big idea, big project. We of course want to increase membership, especially with the children in the local area. And from an elite point of view, we're hoping to become the first recognised Commonwealth Games training centre from the Commonwealth Judo Federation. So we're hoping we can get that status next year, because we do have people from all over the Commonwealth training with the elite team at the moment. Obviously, we've got all the home nations, but we've also got New Zealand players, Australian players, South African players, and one player from Cyprus. So we have got players from around the Commonwealth. So hopefully we could get that status, which would be great for the club as well. But that's the end of our presentation. So thank you for inviting us, and we welcome any questions.
Thank you both very much, Carly and Luke, for coming here tonight. Really interesting again, and I know of all the work that you do with the schools project in the community. And I think it does give the children that are involved in you in many ways the confidence that they need, that sometimes they are lacking, and it's a fantastic job that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from the floor? Josephine.
Thank you, Chairman. I do know of the work you do. In fact, I was fortunate enough to be chair of external partnerships when we gave the grant, and I now seeing you now, I do definitely remember you, and it left a lasting impression. I think you've got an incredible facility. I'm not quite sure how you cope with your accommodation. I think that is definitely different, and I don't think I can cope with that. But I think you do a great job, and I think the borough, I think it's a shame we've never been able to help with a new facility, but I don't think in the short term that's going to happen. But I know you guys do a great job, and you go out to the different schools, and I wondered if perhaps I'm sure you could work with Jane to look at something. You know, if you have a specific project, then perhaps we could help with a community grant, because I think there is funds available. I'm sure Jane will correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there was a huge take-up last time due to COVID. People didn't seem to like to ask for money for some reason.
Yeah.
Didn't seem to like to ask for money. But I think I think it has to be a specific project that we could help you with. Then I think the council. Well, I wouldn't just speak on myself. I think we would. Council would like to help you, and I think you'd do an incredible job. and
Yeah,
any help I
that'd be
can get,
amazing,
I'd like
thank
to.
you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make you aware that there's a very new fund around poverty with the Community Foundation, a large amount of money, and it sounds to me that the free work that you do in schools and with children's camps would make you absolutely a perfect candidate for that funding. So,
Okay, brilliant, thank you.
And also what Surrey Heath is doing around the obesity project with young people, your offering around judo and keeping children and young people and older people active is right up there with the agenda. So I think anything you can do to join in with the agenda around obesity would serve not only the people but other people in Surrey project to
Okay,
see
great.
what they're doing.
Thank you.
Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. And, thank you both for showing me around your facilities earlier today. It was really enjoyable. It was really nice to see the work that you do, and I think you should be really proud of the work that you do and what you have achieved in the club. From what you were saying in terms of how it all works, how the judo system works, you should be incredibly proud. And I would also echo what Councillor Hawkins has just said in terms of what I certainly believe that if there is anything that the council can do to help, is just ask. I think we as a borough council should be incredibly proud that we have a sports facility in our borough that is training Olympians. I think we should be proud of all of our sports facilities, but one such as yours is pretty incredible. So if there is anything that we can do, please let us know.
Pat.
Thank you. What's your catchment area? For the judo club? Yeah.
Anywhere around Camberley, really. And with the schools project, with the schools project, we tried to focus initially around Camberley for the schools, but we've actually gone out as far as sort of Reading area as well. But because of the reputation of the club, as people get older, people tend to travel into the club from at least an hour and a half away as well. But for the smaller kids and for the kids that Carly coaches and the 3 and 4 year olds, it tend to be local in the Surrey Heath Borough area.
You just said two different things. One of you said Camberley, and then you said Surrey Heath, and that's what I was trying to get to.
Okay. You're trying to catch me out?
No, not at all. I was actually thinking that there are...
It's not hard to do, to be honest.
There are local charities in the borough,
Yeah.
but they have a certain remit. So say it was a Chobham charity and you don't get any Chobham children, then we can't help you.
Yes.
But if you had Chobham children, then that Chobham charity could say, well, OK, we wouldn't have vast sums, but,
Yes.
you know, £500,000, if you're like me, every bit helps.
Yes, perfectly, yeah.
So that's why I was asking what your catchment area was.
Okay.
I think in terms, people will come in to travel to us because of our reputation, but in Chobham they have a very good judo club who just got a load of money, so
Yeah.
you know, people tend to stick to where they know. For beginner judo, when people are unaware of what judo is or clubs or reputation or results that you've had, they tend to stick to their area.
Initially, I'd say initially, yeah.
And then they draw into other clubs when they know they need to move on.
But we do have, probably from the teenage sort of age group onwards, we tend to have people that travel in quite a lot. So that avenue we could definitely look into. See, we never really looked at exactly how many areas of travel into us, if you know what I mean, for the sessions, because most of the smaller kids tend to be reasonably local.
It was just I thought, you know, there may be an opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Sorry, thank you.
I've got Rodney Bates on Zoom who'd like to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'm very proud of this club. This is in my ward. I have been around there a number of times, not recently, but I just think they're a great sports club. I think they're a shining example in our borough of fantastic work that's going on. Just one thing that wasn't particularly was mentioned in the presentation, but they have come a number of times to our fun days that have taken place in Old Dean. And what's great about it is when we're talking about Olympic athletes, these are people who are spending their time going around the world competing at the highest possible level. But when they see a group of young people from the old Dean, the enjoyment that they give to those young people is not the airs and graces that perhaps you might get with professional footballers or others. And there's a real sense of engagement with that. And I hope, certainly the impression is given, that the athletes enjoy it as well as the children. And I also want to just touch on the importance of role models that the club actually give, because many of the children we're talking about, unfortunately, will not necessarily have great role models in their life. They may have a parent who is doing that good job, but they may not have that many. And that is where the club is actually really good in that role, by teaching a number of good areas around discipline and respect and behaviour and things like that. And I'm really pleased about the work you do. I think it's fantastic. The only thing I suppose the only question I have is, how can we expand particularly the schools work to involve any more Surrey Heath schools? On your list, you had 8 schools that were benefiting, but I think only 3 of them actually come from Surrey Heath. Now, that's not to catch you out on your knowledge of Surrey Heath anyway. It's just that we have, I would hope, many schools that would want to take it up. I'm sure you would have a problem with capacity, but I would be really keen to kind of get the work that you're doing out into more schools. And if it's a funding issue, then that, as other colleagues have said, maybe that's something we need to look at as a council, and maybe the county council as well. But I would just be keen to roll out your work to as many local schools as we can. And if there's anything we can do to help with that, then that'd be great.
Thank you, Rodney. There are a lot of schools business within the area. So a lot of the schools do have judo in them, in Camberley and Surrey Heath. So it's a matter of finding new schools. That's why we've had to branch out to different areas because of that. So that's the reason why.
Yeah, we definitely, obviously, we would welcome to do work with as many schools as possible in the area. Like Carly said, that we're the only charity, I believe, in the area that coaches in schools, but there are schools, judo businesses that are separate to us that coach in the local area. So sometimes those other schools have been taken by schools businesses.
Following on from Rodney's comments as a local councillor on the Oldene, I have a message from Sean Garrett, the other councillor on the Oldene, who says thanks to Carly and Luke from the Judo Club for everything they do in the community and for the children in Surrey Heath and the Oldene, and they're to be highly commended.
Oh, thanks, that's very kind. And thanks, Rodney, for your comments as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Rodney. On again, so it could hear me. Thank you very much for your presentation tonight. It's really, really interesting, and thank you for everything that you do within the community.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Appreciate it.
Shall we go? There's a turn now to Camberley Cricket Club presentation. Welcome here tonight, Keith. Very pleased to see you, and we're looking forward to hear what you're going to be saying to us. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, and thanks for the invite again, like the other presenters. My involvement in Camberley started in 2003 as a parent of a young boy who was interested in cricket. I started then helping out with the coaching, then became a team manager, various committee stages, and have been chairman for the last 8 years. So I've been involved for some time and seen it change enormously. Just some ideas. What I want to try and do tonight is just give a quick brief view of where we are, who we are, what we've done in the past 2 or 3 years, where we are now, and what we're looking to do in the future. Our ethos is very much to promote the game of cricket to all both genders, all ages, and let's say to all abilities. And that's key because we do have some very young children who are very new to cricket, no idea of the concept and how to play, what to do, how to behave, and that's something we pride ourselves in doing. We also, in addition to the actual cricket side, I believe we are a very important part of the Surrey Heath set up in terms of a community hub. I'll mention that in more detail later, but we have various clubs, societies who meet there during the week, and then at weekends, most weekends are taken up with celebration parties, even weddings and obviously wakes and any sort of residential occasion that we can cater for and help them. We're not a registered charity, but our aim is always, when we're setting budgets, is to try and break it even as near we can. And if we were lucky enough to have any surplus, then that goes back to improving the infrastructure, the facilities, and the actual benefits to our membership in terms of coaching, equipment, etc. Our status, we are actually registered with the Cooperative and Community Benefits Societies Act. But as a company, just like a normal company, we are controlled by the FCA, and we have to provide annual returns, just like normal limited companies do, and submit those for verification. We're VAT registered, and I'd say although we are exempt from providing a statutory audit, we do use a local firm in Camberley of chartered accountants whose main partner, senior partner, is an ex-president of the club, and we have an arrangement, and they actually vet and authorise our accounts. The thing I did want to mention is that we have what's called a Club Mark accreditation, and Club Mark is, as you can read there, ECB is the English Cricket Board. It's a scheme to ensure that clubs are run correctly. They have right safeguarding, they have rules in place, welfare in place to ensure that participants of all ages, and to give the reassurance to parents that we're looking after their children when they're with us and they're getting the right education in cricket as well as youth development. There are over nearly 10,000 now cricket clubs in the country, recreational cricket clubs, and I think at the last count there were about 1,700 or 1,800 clubs that reach this accreditation. It has to be renewed every year and a full account redone every 2 years. And it's quite onerous. We have one guy on our committee who's responsible, and it is an all-round year job, just making sure that every single policy is up to date and is maintained properly. It is continual analysis, but the key for us is it's something we put on our website, we put on all our literature, and anybody we're writing to, parents, they can see that and they know by inquiring about it that it's really a valid reassurance that we are a welcoming place for children of all ages. Where have we been in the last 2 or 3 years? We've noticed an incredible increase in the amount of our junior membership. Our numbers have grown now to just over 240. Last year, we actually topped 250 junior members. We start with what we call junior crickets. They start at the age 5. They go through till 5 or 7. And then we have dynamos and various all-star groups which are run by an ECB initiative, whereby they give the young children packs, the kit, a bat and balls, and a duffel bag, etc. they can take away with them. And they come to us once a week and have full training with qualified ECB coaches. In senior cricket, we've come on a lot since 2018, when we had 2 Saturday teams, 1 Sunday team, and that was basically the limit of our team participation in the Surrey Championship cricket. We now have 3 Saturday teams, 1 Sunday team. We now have gone on to 4 on Saturday with a 4th 11 team, 2 Sunday teams, 2 midweek teams that play T20 cricket. For those of you who know cricket, understand it's very rapid, easy, 2 hours bash and you're home. And then probably in the last 12 months, our most important development has been the introduction of women's cricket into the Camberley. I'll show you something in a moment on that. Our facilities, we do have a relatively new clubhouse, 30 years old, but it's something that is now getting to the age where it needs to have constant monies poured on it. We've had some major enhancements to upgrading the heating, the installation. We've had a new lift, which is very important to us with the clubs that come to us, which was financed partly by a donation from the borough. We've had an outdoor nets facility, again, which I'll show in a moment, which we really needed because the number of juniors we had in 2018-19, we were limited to the number we could take because under ECB rules, you're only allowed to have so many children under a supervision of a coach at a time. It was 8 at a time. So we needed to develop and extend the number of outdoor nets that we had where we had coaching it during the winter, during the summer. And to do that, we needed to have a third net added to the 2 we had. It turned out to be a much bigger project because when the ECB came to look at it, they said, no, we wouldn't put money to help you with this one because it's not compliant now. It's old technology, it's got the wrong surface, etc. So we had to go and have a complete new 3-lane structure built. But we do have that, and I'll show you some pictures in a moment. Finally, the community usage of our facilities. During the week, we have from Monday mornings through to Friday evenings, virtually every afternoon, every morning, taken with fitness clubs, art classes, as you can read, bridge clubs. We have 3 different bridge clubs. U3A have flower arranging and bridge clubs. We have Pilates, we have Keep Fit clubs, and we also rent out the room to companies that want to come in and have a presentation, use the board of the rooms. The weekend celebration, which is probably our major course of income, is probably every weekend we have at least 1, maybe 2, sometimes Fridays and Saturdays. Sundays are reserved for children's birthday parties, but that's a major source of our income, is using our room, which is probably about half the size of this room here, with conference facilities and a bar and a dance floor. Our membership mix is very much in line with what you'd probably find with most recreational cricket clubs. We look at our seniors, we have 74% white and non-white, 26%, and our juniors a little bit more, nearly 30%, but mainly that mix. Of our non-playing, we have membership for people who want to, you just come and use the facilities on a social basis, either watch cricket or take part just interested in coming. We have a larger number of those social members are dog walkers. We try and encourage people, particularly in COVID, to come to the ground. We've got I don't know how many people know where Upper Vernon Road is. Obviously, you would know, but it's tucked away a little bit off the beaten track. We don't have any passing traffic, as it were, so it's something, a secret area where we are. But we try and encourage people to come in, particularly during COVID, and use the grounds for walking their dogs. And we probably took on something like 80 or 90 social members in the last year during COVID who came and just exercised their dogs there. That, as I say, that picture is very similar as you would find in most clubs, about a third being the non-white, diverse, what we try to do. And that has grown enormously. Probably, if you look back to 2017, I think we had something like 10% of our total core were non-white people. There's a picture of our function room set up for a function. As I say, we have weddings, we have major, probably the most regular one are 30 to 40, 50-year-old birthdays. We won't hire the room out to anybody for 18th or 21st birthday parties. We did have a problem going back about 4 or 5 years now where we made that mistake and the place was trashed and we had to rebuild part of it. So we now don't let anybody under 21 hire the room. This is the outdoor coaching centre that we built and finished last year. As I say, we had planned to spend something like £15,000 to £20,000 on it. It ended up being nearly £65,000. We were able to get grants from Sport England, London Marathon Trust, the ECB, Surrey Cricket. Then we raised something like £15,000 internally from members doing various charity things to raise money. That's been in use, and now we are rolling it out for uses for schools and people who are non-members. It's not just limited to membership, but we are getting other schools now to come and use it during the summer terms. As I said, cricket, women's cricket has taken off in a big way. We had no members when we went into this time last year, and we've probably now got a base of about 35 women that play. Specsavers in Camberley kindly sponsored the team, so they enjoy their major sponsorship sport is probably cricket anyway, but keen to get involved with us. They're probably not the most successful club team we've got in the club, but they are the most they enjoy it more than anybody, I can tell you. I often say to them when they walk off after a game, you'd never know whether they won or lost because they just have so much fun. So it's great to see. Who uses our hub, our community hub base? We did an analysis of the last 100 bookings that we had, and as you can see there, the vast majority is in Surrey Heath. Surrey other would be parts of outside of Surrey Heath. Hampshire primarily is Farnborough. We have, if people want to use it for parties, for hiring, it is basically in the area. We've got a few in Berkshire as well, which is Bracknell, and the others are people who perhaps lived away in the other parts of the country who come back and want to bring their families together locally. So it's predominantly Surrey Heath that used the hub for our celebrations. And finally, just to go through some of the issues, what we've got and what are we good at and what we're trying to do. Our strengths undoubtedly are our ground and facilities. Our ground is probably in the whole of the Surrey setup where we're talking of probably 100 clubs. Ours is probably in the top 5-10% of grounds facilities. We're always, people who visit us as teams, always commenting on how nice and the ground is and how good the playing area is. We do, in addition to hosting our own games, the British Police, British Army, Surrey Ladies, Hampshire twos have played there, Surrey second team, Surrey Seniors. All those teams come during the summer, in the week, and use the ground for playing there. We have a very good committee of about 14 people, meet regularly every month to go through issues. They're very experienced. I would say of the 14, at least 10 of them have been there for 7 or 8 years, so they know it very well. We have good community support. We have excellent relationships with residents' associations and U3A groups, etc. And probably most importantly, we've got very loyal membership. People who've been there with their children, they come along, they join as social members, and then even when the children have gone off to university or they have no really interest in the club, they still maintain their membership with the club and use it as a venue to meet friends, etc. So we have people from aged nearly over 90, some of them down to 20-year-olds. So it's a nice social membership. Where are we weak? We're very weak with a lack of, it doesn't read very well, but lack of school catchment areas. We don't have, like a lot of the clubs that we're competing with when we play senior cricket, we're competing with clubs mainly in the Croydon and Outer London areas of Surrey, and they seem to have 5 or 6 large schools where if you're able to get 3 or 4 of those boys or girls from those schools, you suddenly find you have 50 people, 50 boys or 50 girls. We don't have that. The school that probably plays cricket most of the year round is Salesian. We do have quite a few Salesian boys at the club, but that's the limit of it. The rest are relying on local schools. What we do need, very importantly, is the second ground. The first team, the second team, they dovetail, so one plays at home, one plays away, and the next week it's the other way around. But we then have 2 other teams we have to find grounds for. We are, at the moment, using the Army ground, primarily because one of our committee members is a major in the Army and is able to get us on the paying a rent to hire the ground at the Army ground off the 329. And that helps us for the moment, but that's not a long term. We used to use Deep Cut. There was a ground at Deep Cut before they did the development, and we used that as our second ground. That's now gone, and the Army ground may well end up being only a 2-year arrangement. So we have our name down for the Deep Cut redevelopment, because I understand there's going to be a cricket sports facility there on the new development Deep Cut, and we've put our name down through an ECB contact that should that happen, we'd be interested in using the ground. That we might well do with Frimley Cricket Club, we're also interested. Over the years, we've noticed it's much more difficult to get sponsorships, so that's a major problem for us, a weakness, probably more to do with an economic downturn and then COVID. It's difficult. Previously, sponsors were coming to us and saying, can we put a board around the ground, can we sponsor your team, put names on shirts, etc. That's proving much more difficult to do these days. And finally, our girl participation isn't where we should be. We know that for a fact. Our boys, junior boys, are very strong. We run sides all the way through from, this is, if we say competitive cricket, they're playing in leagues against other cricket clubs from the ages of 8 or 9 through to under 17s. Girl participation is very sporadic. It's maybe one at under 11, one at under 13, and then maybe, if we're lucky, in under 15. We've struggled with girl participation, so that's a key aim for the club going forward. But we hope that the development of women's cricket, the reason we've lost girls is that they've come through, they've stopped playing when they're 13, 14, 15, because they don't see the progression, what they're going to do afterwards. So they end up stop playing cricket. But now we have a women's cricket team, the pathway should be easier for them to develop. The opportunities are, there is a certain increase in the game based on the success in the World Cup for the England team, and obviously recent progress in the World Cup to the T20. That might be jeopardised with what's happening within cricket at the moment with some of the racial slurs, but we haven't, and the ECB aims to put that right. What's happened, I think, is what I said earlier, is although they're, like most cricket clubs, they have a high proportion of multiple ethnic groups, 30%. By the time you get to professional cricket, that dwindles down to something like 3%. So that's where the issue is. I put this into a slide some 2 weeks ago to say there are opportunities for COVID usage recovery was a major opportunity for us, because we noticed during COVID, immediately after post-COVID, whether it was people wanting to get outside and exercise and do things, or they didn't want to go away, they were staying in for staycations, our membership inquiries rocketed, and that's increased in the back end of last season as well. And certainly the usage of using the function room that we have at the club for parties, celebrations, etc., we're now getting twice the number of inquiries to hold parties that we had a year ago. So that's very much hopeful will generate the extra income that we need to run the club. But obviously that's to be seen given the current situation. Our future issues are ageing volunteers. As I said, I think we have 7 or 8 people that are my age, well into 70s, who may well be looking to step down, and to replace that sort of knowledge and experience is going to be very difficult. So that's something we need to be, as one of our key objectives, is to develop some succession planning this year, the next 12 months. As I said earlier, the clubhouse is an excellent clubhouse. It's the envy of a lot of clubs come to us, but when things go wrong, they seem to go wrong, and it's big bucks. It's a roof repair or a boiler replacement, and we're talking every time we have a major project, it's £10,000, £20,000 we've got to find somewhere. Ground maintenance, we've been lucky enough to have a groundsman that we use. He shares his time with Finch Hampstead Cricket Club over in Woking Way, and that's worked very well, but he is of an age now where he will be looking to retire. Unfortunately, he owns all the equipment, so when we change, we want to try and bring it all in-house, but then we've got to find several areas to buy mowers and cutters and rollers, etc. So that's a big project for us, because he has intimated that may well happen in the next 12 months. And our long-term financial security is the #1 riding concern. We want to maintain the place, the cricket club in Camberley as a base for juniors and for senior cricket going forward. And we only have a limited pot of money, which has dwindled by about 60% since I've been in charge, purely because of the ongoing maintenance and what we need to do to the ground. So it's something we're wary of. We need to make sure that we continually look for sponsors and use the function room to its fullest extent. And I think that was the end, yeah. So if there are any questions, obviously I'd welcome taking them.
Thank you very much, Keith. Such a good presentation again. And like yourselves and Canby Judo Club, how lucky we are to have you in this borough. I mean, such an asset, isn't it, to have these clubs within the borough. I'll take any questions from members. David?
It's not really a question as such. It's I'm actually the councillor for Watchetts, and so you fall in my ward and my division as county councillor. of all the sporting facilities on my ward, actually, you're the one I've heard from least. In fact, not at all. So all I'm saying is, please contact me because I can help you with certain council things. So, happy to help as your councillor.
Well, as Jane knows, we've had the benefit of using, on 2 occasions, the funds and grants from the council. We have support during COVID, tremendous support from the council, unbelievable support from the council in terms of grants and support. I personally sit on the Surrey Heath Youth Sports Council, so I get to know a lot what's going on from that side. And I think the council and obviously the government in the wider sense have been probably kept us going. The fallout from COVID for cricket clubs, well, like a lot of smaller clubs, we haven't seen it yet, but it will happen this coming year. I think about 5% of the Surrey cricket clubs will probably will stop. For the clubs that we used, we only lost 1 bridge club, which was one of the major issues we had was that all the clubs that use, with the exception of the Keep Fit, which is the younger element, the bridge clubs and the art classes and these other predominantly older people, if that's not being rude, it's a generation of 75 plus people. And they switched to playing online. That's what they wanted to do, and we've tried to persuade them. And only in the last 6 weeks have they started to come back to the club. Not in the numbers they were before, but now they've started to come back in the club and use it. But certainly, it's something we're very pleased with what sort of cooperation we've had from the council.
Yeah, obviously, as you borough councillor, county council, we do get grants and things, so that we can distribute. So please, yeah, please talk to me.
Yes, thank you. I will do. Yeah.
Morgan?
Thank you very much, Chair. I was just wondering, so I was quite interested when you mentioned the kind of the lack of the school catchment area, and I was just wondering, is that mainly because the schools in Surrey Heath don't do a lot of cricket? I'm just wondering about Kings and Tomlinscote and Collingwood, or is there kind of outreach? Is there kind of a way of you being able to reach out to those schools to see if there is the younger people that be willing to? I'm just wondering where kind of the problem is for you.
Well, the problem is it's more to do with if you take a broad spectrum of the cricket clubs in Surrey. I'm not saying it's fact, but we are right on the extreme edge of Surrey for cricket. We play clubs now who are on the borderline of Kent on a Saturday, and I think some of my personal view is that some of the clubs in Surrey a little bit resent coming all this way out to play cricket. Their hub is Clapham, Croydon, Wimbledon, that area. And in those areas, there are 10 clubs within a 5-mile circumference. And those clubs have a predominance of private schools that play cricket indoor, outdoor, all year round. Now, we don't have that. Sleasian probably come the closest to it. But what we do, ECB, again, they have something called a Chance to Shine programme. You apply for hours and you nominate the schools you want to go into, and then you can send coaches in to those schools, and the coaches are paid through the ECB, so it doesn't cost the school anything. At the moment, we have arrangements with St Augustine's, Tomlinscote, Frimley Green, Crawley Ridge, and we're trying to expand that into more. But there's only a certain pot the ECB will release, and we use all that pot with the schools we do have, but it's not anywhere near half the schools in Camberley that we'd like to get to.
Keith, you mentioned volunteers and you've got ageing volunteers. What sort of roles were you looking at there?
Well, so I've done nearly 20 years, and I'm chairman, and I would like probably in the next few years to set down. It's not so much that you're tired and you want to do something different. The previous chairman, and I've talked about this, he knows my feelings, it would have been just on the end of a phone, you pick up to answer a question. With compliance with ECB, with club marking, with policies, fundraising, it's a full-time job, and I think there are people. I have a very good cricket manager who looks after the cricket side. There's a welfare people. There are club managers, team managers, etc. And I think the majority of the club people have been there, and things have changed. It's much more technical. It's digital. People need to, when we do bring somebody new onto the committee who's younger, who can see a quicker way to do things, it's amazing how much it lightens up people's life. Oh, I didn't realise that, or I didn't realise you could do that. So it's not so much people wanting to step down because they're tired. It's just saying that we really need to bring in specialist skills onto the committee for people who can do the job probably better, in a different way than we have been doing. Moving ahead with progress with time.
Yeah, I can see that. You mentioned the bridge and the online playing at the moment. My husband's a bridge player. He's doing online at the moment. Some of his club are going back in, but I think it'll be a long while before he actually goes face to face. But that will come back because these people, the players, are just missing that social side of it now.
Camberley Bridge Club, I say they started back in September with us. And for exactly that reason, they said that they balloted their members, and when they did this back in June, I think it was 70% said they were quite happy doing it Zoom. It was nice, and then suddenly they've said, well, they missed the social interaction. It's not so much just playing cards; it's actually finding out how your daughter's getting on, is your dog get better, and everything. It was just the social chit chat as well as playing. So now, say apart from one bridge club, which was a smaller one. Hasn't come back. They've come back. All of them have come back, and hopefully this latest outlook doesn't stop that from changing.
Keith, thank you very much for your presentation. Sorry. Rodney, would you like to come in with a comment or question, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I did want to come in on this actually because I play league cricket. I think I'm probably the only councillor who does play league cricket, but I've never played at Camberley. So I just wanted to ask a question about kind of cricket generally. The issue of volunteers is a problem at every cricket club. I'm sure that it's not just Camberley that has that. But I was really interested in what you had to say about community cohesion. And you highlighted about the ECB issue at the moment that are well recorded on the news. But most cricket clubs actually, leaving aside what may have happened at Yorkshire or other clubs and any wider issues, most clubs are pretty good actually in terms of opportunities for community cohesion. And because you have people of all nationalities that play cricket, there's an opportunity here for the council to link a bit more closely with cricket clubs, and Camberley being one of the primary examples, in terms of areas where we need more help or advice from different ethnic minorities. So if I give two examples of this, on Saturday, both the Mayor and I were present at Surrey Minority Ethnic Forum, where we met with a number of people from different nationalities to hear various very important messages, such as people having COVID jabs, because that community was not actually having it. Now, I accept that that doesn't, on the face of it, have much to do with cricket, but actually your players, because they know each other, are good role models for others in the community who may need to hear that message. So I guess my question is whether that's one option. Another situation is where, for example, I do taxi licensing. I don't know if your players are taxi drivers. Many in my club are. And again, it's getting messages out to community members that perhaps the council can't necessarily reach or not reach as easily. So I guess my question is that an area that you think Camberley Cricket Club could play a part, i.e. in passing on information from the council or other public bodies to players, not obviously giving information away to them or asking for their email addresses, but to literally pass on messages such as COVID or other public messages that would help the community to kind of get important public messages across to them.
By all means, we have a large notice board entrance to the club. We have a pamphlet area with display areas on tables that when people, mainly if a sponsor wants to get messages across to a wider community, and people who are non-members have come in and used that facility as well. So yeah, it's something obviously very willing to get involved with.
coming this evening. We look forward to seeing you again at some time in the future.
Yeah,
And
thanks for the invite. Yeah.
we wish you a very good and successful season when it starts next year. We'll be down there many hours. You've probably got a Salesian lad coming, our other grandchild, next year. He's very keen to join. It's an excellent club.
Yeah, as I said, I think we're just a bit of a secret place because people often say, well, when people come and say, where are you? When we tell them, and they come and look and say, well, I've lived in Camberley for 20 years and didn't know this place existed. So it's not a place you just drive past. Anyway, thank you.
Good evening, members. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Jane Boytel. I'm Community Partnership Officer for the Borough Council. And I just wanted to, just go through the lottery because it's something now that the Council launched a couple of years ago. And it does do a lot of good within the community. On average, since the launch, there's been about 1,800 winners, which is really good news. And for one lucky lady, she actually won £25,000, which is brilliant. I wish there was more, but one is better than none. So yes. Let me just slip this over. So, and that lady in particular supported an organisation called Homestar. Homestar's a local charity based in St Michael's and helps families within the community. And it's great organisations. So when we launched in 2019, there were about 34 organisations. So we've increased that to 65. And how that works is that basically you buy a ticket and you support your local organisation, and your organisation gets 50p out of every pound that is made. And then the other 10p will go to, like in our instance, it will go to Surrey Heath. And then 20p goes in prizes and 20p goes to the lottery administrator. So it's a great scheme, and what happens is that at the end of each year, because when the council introduced the scheme, as I know Josephine will remember, we said that there were to be no profits that were made by the Borough Council. So we launched something called an annual grant scheme. Last year we had one, didn't we, Josephine? And we awarded, I think it was 7 or 8 grants to local charities. This year we have the same thing, and that has just opened. So the idea tonight was to actually ask all of you that are here is to really promote the lottery to your contacts on Facebook, everywhere, but also promote the fact that the lottery annual grant scheme is open, and that's open to receive applications until the 15th of December. So we're not necessarily looking to award big prize money with this because we don't necessarily have it to award, but it's small sums of money to organisations. You know, like today, Morgan, we were talking about trying to help the judo club with some monies where we suggested that they may wish to make an application. So it's any organisations, any local groups, not-for-profit that you know that may wish to take advantage of it. They don't have to be part of the lottery scheme. As long as they're not-for-profit and they deliver services within Surrey Heath, they would be welcome to apply to it. It is a very simple online form. I'm afraid it's all done online now. If there are difficulties and you want a paper copy of it, if any of you send me an email, I'll get a paper copy to you, and I will accept a paper copy. So there we are. I beg your pardon. I'm sorry. It's slightly out of sync. So they were the awards that we made last year, and you know that helped those organisations tremendously. We have had a lot of grant availability this year through COVID, and this is another. But you know, this is, as I say, is for smaller amounts of money, so there aren't necessarily big sums there. So, how can you help us? Please, I would ask you to promote to local groups, local organisations, and all the contacts that you have, please, because without it, it is a bit of a circle. We need the organisations and the people to keep the scheme going, and for that we constantly need to keep the communications going. It's a very short presentation, but I will take any questions if any of you have got any.
Thank you, Jane. I'm really glad that it's actually doing well. I remember when it first came to committee, I was a little dubious that there was going to be take-up of it. I know. But I'm really glad that it has, not only just that it's thrived, so I'm actually really glad that it has. I'm just on the question of getting everything out to people. I'm assuming that the Surrey Heath Lottery.co.uk link, is that where people go to apply for the grant as well? So everything is on that.
Well, that's where they would, yes, that's where they would go to find out about it. Yeah. And then I can send out to everybody, you know, the dedicated link to that, to all of the applications. I'll send that out to you tomorrow.
Would it be also, could you put together if there's something that you wanted to get out, like a social media post, would that be possible to have something, rather than all 35 of us writing something? Is there something that you could do?
I will send it out to you tomorrow. I'll write something for you to easily forward on, copy and paste and forward on.
It's not really a question, but just a comment. I'm always getting stuff through from Neighbourhood Watch. I get loads of stuff from them, and I think they clearly are very active on the lottery. And I think, you know, Jane won't mind me saying that, you know, when it was first set up, that it's a way that people can support their local organisations. For instance, if you had a child who was going to the Scouts or a youth club or a certain organisation, it is a way that by you purchasing I don't know, I'm doing this, it's nothing to do with me. If you purchase a lottery ticket, then it not only gives you the opportunity to win something, but it also supports that organisation. So it's you sort of doing two things with one
yeah.
you know.
No, you support the organisation, and then there's a chance actually for you to win some money as well, which is really lovely, because it's not often that you can actually do some good and then actually have a chance to win something as well.
And £1 a week's nothing really, is it? Not that I'd want anything.
Just another question. Is there any restriction in terms of what you can apply for? If you're applying for the grant, is there... Obviously, you've got that they have to be a not-for-profit organisation and it's for delivering services, but can they say they want to buy a coffee machine? Yeah, there's no kind of... It hasn't got to be directly...
Just go to the organisation.
Yeah, as long as it is something that the organisation wants to use. It doesn't have to be for a direct service that something is delivering.
Jane, thank you very much for that. It's obviously been very, very successful. And
thank you.
Wish it the well going on in the future.
Thank you.
Yeah, it will, I'm sure. Thank you. Members, we're on to agenda item 9 now, and this is the work programme for 2021 and 22. You can see there that already, I'm looking at page 9 here of the agenda, we've got a lot going on. We've included accent, as you will see here, at every meeting, and others. And we might have to rejig now and again, but as you see listed below that, there are lots of possible areas that we might and groups that we might look at in the future on that programme. Does anybody have any comments on that? Josephine?
Sorry, Chairman, I'm clearly saying too much tonight. I didn't see it on there, but I wondered, I'm not sure if the organisation is still on, but we did at one time have a brilliant presentation from an organisation called Street Angels. I don't know, are they still in existence? Yeah, because I think I found it absolutely fascinating, and I think it's not something that people are particularly aware of, and I think it might be interesting if we can, once, well, things will get better. It'd be quite good if we could get them along to just show what they do to help and support people. Thank you.
That's the end of the meeting. I think we've covered everything there. So thank you all for coming, and for people that have been in on Zoom this evening, and to all the officers for backing us up here tonight. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.